Tennis legend Novak Djokovic has been deported from Australia and banned from entering for 3 years. Let's talk about it. Hi guys, I'm JNewtz. Welcome back to the channel. Before I get started, do me a favor, do yourself a favor, click subscribe and ring that grey notification bell so that you know every single time that I make videos. Now, let's get into this. The months and weeks are rapidly going by and we are getting closer to the Melbourne International Comedy Festival where we are putting on our show Censored. It's very politically incorrect, very dark, very black, very topical. If you like all of what I've just mentioned, get those tickets in the links below. We would love to see you there. The hot topic of news around the world right now is that tennis legend Novak Djokovic has been deported from Australia. So I thought we would just go through the key points and just sort of see, is it fair or is it not fair? Now, no matter who you are, at the moment, if you enter Australia, you need to be vaccinated. And if you are not vaccinated, well, you go into quarantine. In fact, if you are vaccinated, you still go into quarantine because in this country, we still haven't really worked out the fact that you can be vaccinated and still get the virus. I know, how crazy is that? And so, of course, Mr. Djokovic was placed into hotel quarantine. However, on arrival, he was detained by the Australian Border Force and asked about his vaccination status. He had medical exemptions, he had letters, and all the documentation to back up that he was allowed to be in the country. The Australian Open were more than happy for him to come and play. He had medical exemptions from his country, and he also had letters from our country, Australia, to basically allow him here to play in the Australian Open. However, that wasn't good enough for Border Force or for the government, and he was told he couldn't play and he had to leave. So he took them, and by them I probably mean the Australian government, to court, and what's probably been the fastest court case I've ever heard of. Through the case, all the documentation was provided, his medical exemption, the fact that he had actually caught COVID-19, and apparently in this country, if you've had COVID-19, you are exempt from being vaccinated for what's now 3 months. It used to be 6 months, but surprise, surprise, the government keep changing everything. Upon hearing all the evidence in court, the judge ruled that Mr. Djokovic's detention was invalid, and he basically said, what more could he have done? He provided his documentation after all. However, the small little loophole here, and the thing that the media really threw back in his face and in the public to really get everyone offside of Mr. Djokovic, was the fact that he had lied on his travel declaration form. Long story short, Novak Djokovic and his legal team won the case in federal court and he was allowed to stay and play in the Australian Open. However, that wasn't good enough. That did not sit well with the Australian federal government, and so the Minister of Immigration cancelled his visa. The main reason why he cancelled the visa was because Mr. Djokovic had not told the truth in his declaration. Basically, he fucked up. He either withheld information or he ticked the wrong boxes. And people have been judging him for that. Now, of course, Mr. Djokovic and his legal team appealed this. They went back to court and unfortunately, they lost. Even though the Australian Open had said, we can let him play. Even though the Australian Open had put him in the lineup to play on the very first day, which was yesterday, Monday the 17th of January. But no, they talk about, well, you didn't answer that correctly, and by the way, you're also a big anti-vax community profile, and therefore, if you win, that's going to really spark the whole anti-vax movement, and we can't have that. And really, that's probably the biggest underlying thing here. It isn't the fact that he lied or gave some misinformation on his travel declaration. No, it's not about that at all. It's all about the fact that he is a big anti-vax icon, allegedly, around the world. Sadly, after losing the case, Mr. Djokovic was told he was being deported, and he is now, from what I understand, back home in Serbia. But to make matters worse, he hasn't just been told, no, you can't play in the 2022 Australian Open. He's been told he's been banned to come into Australia for the next 3 years. However, they did want to stress that he could apply for an exemption. But what fucking difference will that make? He came to this country with exemptions and he was told, we don't give a fuck about your exemptions, get the hell out of this country. But now he's told by Australia, oh, you can try to come back, just apply for an exemption, and if we think that you have grounds to be here, if it's in the national interest for you to play sport in this country, we'll grant you an exemption. Do you really think he's going to bother? After putting up with the shame and humiliation now of being thrown out of a country, after supplying all the documentation which probably showed he could be here. He was probably no threat to anybody. But no, they've deported him, they have banished him, and oh, we'll give him an exemption if we want to. They won't give him a fucking exemption. If he wants to come here next year, or 2024, he can apply for an exemption, and the Australian government will go, fuck you, we don't want you. And personally, I wouldn't be at all surprised if Mr. Djokovic never wants to come back here ever again. Because, sadly, there's a bigger picture to all of this. As I said before, there are people out there who are really pissed off that this has happened, and there are people out there who are celebrating the fact that this tennis celebrity has been thrown out of this country. And it's to those particular fucktards that I want to speak to. In fact, this video is actually for you. Because what you have failed to realize is that Novak Djokovic being deported, even though he had all of his exemptions, it doesn't affect him, it affects all of us. Because if a tennis celebrity, if a sports star with exemptions who's had COVID-19, if they get thrown out of a country with exemptions, what fucking hope have you got to get an exemption? Have you thought about that, for example? Now, yes, Djokovic may have lied or accidentally not declared what he was meant to declare, but can you honestly tell me or tell yourself or anybody else that you haven't lied before? Can you honestly say that you haven't declared everything? I mean, God, there's Border Force shows all about, I didn't declare fruit, or I didn't declare all this money, or, oh, I didn't declare that particular item. If people can get away with things, they will. It's human nature. So don't be a fucking hypocrite, because chances are you fucking lied a lot in your life too. The fact that the whole guise of this thing has been that he is a threat to public health because he's unvaccinated and he is a symbol of the anti-vax movement, that just goes to prove how fucking tyrannical the Australian government has become. It goes to prove that everyone in Australia really is living in a dictatorship, and in my point of view, it goes to prove that Australia is really heading more towards being communist than anything else. Now, this of course is just my opinion, but when they blame one person and they throw out these stupid fucking reasons, come on, what else are we meant to fucking think? We need someone, somewhere, to win against the government. And everybody was hoping, at least the sensible people were hoping, that Novak Djokovic would win against the government, because it takes a small part of power away from the government and it gives the average fucking person a chance. So ask yourself, you fucking idiot, if you're the one who is celebrating the fact that Djokovic is being kicked out and he's lost his appeal. If Djokovic or people of that particular ilk can't get into this country and they are thrown out and treated that way, what fucking chance have you got for any exemption anywhere in the future? I bet you didn't think about that, did you, dickhead? Do you know what? That means you are a fucktard. Do me a favour now. Comment below. I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think that I'm talking absolute fucking shit? Do you agree that Djokovic should have been thrown out of Australia? Or do you think that the whole thing is a fucking atrocity, it's been handled really poorly, he's been made out to be the fucking victim, and Australia should really be ashamed of itself? Whatever your opinion is, I want to hear from you. Now, don't forget, April is coming up. It is the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, and it's your chance to see Censored. Like I said, if you like dark comedy, black comedy, comedy that is designed to be offensive and also very thought-provoking, Censored is for you. So click all the links in the description below, check out our website, go onto the try booking link, get your tickets right now. You're gonna fucking love Censored. We might even make a few Djokovic jokes, who knows. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell, and remember, don't be a fucktard. You know, 3 years ago, people never would have accepted this kind of injustice. Just goes to prove what brainwashing does.